So Tim sent this to me, and thank you very much, Tim, for sharing this. And I saw this hit the blogosphere last night, and then you sent it to me, but I did see this floating around because this actually happened near me. But a church is making a statement here. So it's the holiday season. I'm sure you've been seeing the nativity scenes around. That's something people do. I don't really get into the holidays. We've talked about this before. I'm not a big holiday guy. I appreciate the downtime. I appreciate seeing family and friends. But, all the hullabaloo, all the bells and whistles, not really my thing. But here we go. It is about perseverance against cruelty. California church's nativity scene shows the Holy Family separated in cages. So check this out. This is in Claremont, California, which isn't too terribly far from me. If this isn't your church's politics, you've got the wrong faith. That's a quote. So here's what they have. They have the Mother Mary. This is the baby Jesus and Joseph, and they're all in cages. So a nativity scene in the Southern California city of Claremont depicting the Holy Family as a separated family held in cages is sparking controversy and conversations over Donald Trump's immigration policies. And so a music journalist named Zell McCarthy tweeted, "If this isn't your church's politics, you've got the wrong faith." Vanity Fair writer Anthony Briznikin said that the Claremont United Methodist Church depicting Jesus, their thing depicting Jesus, Joseph and Mary in cages on either side of a caged baby Jesus, was an accurate representation of the meaning of the Bible story. I love the nativity story. I love it because it is warm. I love it not because it is warm and fuzzy, but because it is about perseverance against cruelty. No one saves them. The child is born in squalor, hiding among animals. He rests in a manger, which is not a hay-stuffed crib, but a feeding trough. I not to nitpick here, nor do I really want to get into a bunch of biblical interpretation because, I don't really think all that highly of that book. I think it's a book that was written a long, long time ago by people. And I think at the end of the day, it was about controlling poor people. But I remember everywhere was just full. That was like what we were taught. Like, and granted, it's been a long time since I've actually read a firsthand text. But what I was taught in school, and I went to Catholic school, I was taught that, everywhere was full. There was no room. And then there was like, well, dude, the one innkeeper was like, "I got nothing, man, but I can kind of put you out in this manger. It's not great, but it's at least a roof of sorts." And they were like, "All right, we'll take it." I don't know. Maybe it's whatever. And then they added that the nativity story points the finger at those who, when faced with evil, do nothing. The monster of the nativity story is not King Herod, the bloodthirsty tyrant. He is just the backdrop. The villain is the innkeeper, a common everyday person who sees their dire situation and chooses not to help. No room, sorry. America is full of innkeepers these days. All right. Okay. That's a new interpretation. I think if every room is full, what is an innkeeper supposed to do? If we want to be literal here, if you are an innkeeper, that's your job. You maintain an inn and every single room is full. What do you do in that scenario? All right. Anyway, now they're saying we don't see it as political. We see it as theological, which, I get that part of it. So here's the thing. Obviously, I agree with the statement they're making, and I think it's a powerful statement. I think it's a great statement. However, taking it in the context, when churches make these overt political statements, there's a little bit of uneasiness that a lot of people get because there is supposed to be a separation of church and state, meaning the church is not really supposed to use their platform to promote political agendas because there is a separation of church and state. And as a result, churches do not pay a dime in taxes, which, by the way, I'm against. I think churches should pay taxes. And then if they are paying taxes, they can just kind of make whatever statements they want, but they should be paying taxes. That's what I think. Like those, and of course, churches violate these rules all the time. And when they do violate them, even if it's completely blatant, like what the Mormon Church did in regards to Prop 8, they pay zero consequence. There's no consequence. So just for the sake of remaining consistent, you have to have the kind of same cautionary thoughts when it's something you agree with and when it's something you don't. A lot of times when a church makes a political statement, typically it's something I don't agree with. I'd say probably 90% of the time or more, it's something I don't agree with. But 10% of the time, there's something like this. I do agree with this. I do agree with this statement. I think it's very powerful. I approve of it. But I also understand that, well, there's a separation of church and state for a reason. And even though in principle, I'd rather they just pay taxes, I have to say, well, they shouldn't be, if they're going to make a statement with the nativity scene, that's one thing. But, it would be going a step further if they start, encouraging people who they shouldn't vote for, using the pulpit to make overt political statements, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we'll see if there's any consequences for this. I'd be curious. I think, honestly, I think we're just going to talk about it for a couple of days and that's going to be it. I'd imagine most members of the church are okay with it, especially in a place like California, but we'll see. But, so I totally agree with them in morals and principles, and I agree with the statement. But I also understand, the slippery slope that is the separation of church and state, and feel like, we should be consistent there, even when it's something we agree with versus something when we don't. When a church makes a statement, it's like, well, separation of church and state, whether it's something I agree with or not. But it is a cool scene. That is a pretty cool photo, and it's a pretty powerful photo, and it's a pretty powerful scene they developed. So thank you for sharing that, Tim. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your